Oh, Liu Bei, you seriously have no chill. I couldn't really have started this review without including that scene now, could I? There have been many iterations set within the Romance of the Three Kingdoms era. I myself was first introduced to it via the Dynasty Warriors series, but it was only at the turn of the year I was informed of a TV series based from the novel set in that era, which comprised of 95 separate episodes. Upon finding that out, I eagerly dove into 2010's Three Kingdoms, and after completing it, I found it to be a show I didn't know I needed so much. I've always loved this time period in Chinese history, but my knowledge in truth was quite frankly limited. And since I was mostly going off the game series, which is a heightened story in itself, I wanted to dig deeper, find out more facts rather than fiction, and in turn learn so much more about these characters and factions that waged war in a turbulent era of Chinese history. Now, two things you will notice almost straight away. Yes, the battles are pretty bad, but on the flip side to that, the character interactions are more than capable of picking up the slack and improving the series overall by tenfold. Now, it's easy enough to understand why the battles are pretty poor and the weakest part of the show. Firstly, you would need an astronomical budget to make each of them unique, and given how many of them were fought around this time, that was just never going to happen. The show overall was supposedly only around $30 million, and that is not much at all considering how much some series get each for, say, a 10-episode season. In a better way of explaining it, they make do with what they had, and likely did the best they could with what they were given. It does make me chuckle seeing the same fighting animations, encampments or battle formations time after time again, in particular that bit with Guan Yu. And just as a side note, please forgive any names I mispronounce, as I'm bound to butcher more than a few of them by the end of this review. Alright then, so, generally speaking, the three factions vying for control of the land were Wei, Wu and Shu, or Shu Han as they later became known. Figureheading the main powerhouse for most of this series was Wei's warlord Cao Cao. Cao Cao is a master manipulator, and his phrase of "I would rather betray the world than let the world betray me" is synonymous with his character. All in all, he is the villain of this story, but that does not stop him from being my favourite warlord. Aside from that laugh, which is just absolutely perfect, Cao Cao is played perfectly by Zhan Binchen. Rising up through the ranks, Cao Cao is one that does not hesitate to kill, reward, or do what he feels is right for the betterment of the land. Later on, we are constantly reminded of how ruthless in command he can be, but you gotta remember that he was the only one in fact, that had the stones to even try to assassinate Dong Zhuo. That evil tyrant had the realm trembling under his cruel rule, and the coalition of everyone else trying to overthrow him may have had the fatuous Lord Huan Shao as the leader, but in reality it was Cao Cao's planning and leadership that was really holding the whole thing together. This time period was fraught with scheming, betrayal and ideals of gaining power, and where Cao Cao may have succeeded in this regard, he never truly had the support of a critical aspect: the people. That honour fell to the humble and benevolent Liu Bei. A descendant from the Han itself, the dynasty currently in power, Liu Bei and his sworn brothers Guan Yu and Zhang Fei were responsible for upholding the fractured pillars of the Han. In the beginning, it was only the three of them, and they were constantly looked down upon by the other lords of the land. With no place to call home and no army to achieve his ambition, Liu Bei's story from a simple shoemaker to one of the three warlords of the realm is really quite inspiring. Granted, he doesn't achieve much for quite some time, but once the sleeping dragon Zhuge Liang styled Kongming joins his lord, then he means business. Now, Zhuge Liang by a long way was my favourite character throughout this series. He makes his first appearance in episode 33, nearly a third into the entire run of the show, and his loyalty and wit had me convinced from the off. He's just such an awesome and brilliant character. His strategic mastermind and foresight turned Liu Bei from fleeing Cao Cao's armies to repelling the enemy, reinforcing what they had, and eventually mounting an attack, and also almost taking control of the whole Three Kingdoms. Zhuge Liang takes over following Liu Bei's death, but his lord's ambition and final wish was forever withstanding, and he aimed to achieve that task before his final days. Frankly, at times though, you will find yourself sighing at how stubborn Liu Bei is, as he causes more problems than he solves, with Jing being the prime example. That whole ordeal could have been resolved so much easier if he had only listened to both his prime minister or the soon-to-be dead Liu Biao. He was going to grant Jing to them upon his death, and that also fit in with Zhuge Liang's Longzhong plan. But no, he just couldn't take it from him like that. It wasn't right for him to do. Don't get me wrong, I do like Liu Bei a lot. Not as much as Cao Cao, mind you, but far more than the final warlord of the Three Kingdoms, Sun Quan. Sun Quan was only a child when this series began, and he was a bit of a boss, as much as I hate to say. The tiger of Jiandong, Sun Jian, perishes early on, and his successor Sun Ce, the little conqueror, ends up being killed in an unknown ambush, which in turn could only leave the Southland into the hands of the little master himself, Sun Quan. Wu, in truth, is my least favourite of the Three Kingdoms, and they are pretty much the third wheel in this show. They don't get anywhere near enough screen time and dedication to them as Wei or Shu do, and the massively important battles that occur, like He Fei, are entirely skipped over. Personally, it didn't bother me all that much. It would have been cool for, say, an extra 10 episodes or so with all that bit involved. But I'll be frank, a big reason for my dislike for Wu here was due to one person only. That being Zhou Yu. Could not stand the guy. What an absolute prick. Constantly trying to have Zhuge Liang killed because he wasn't as smart as he was. Dude, get a grip of yourself and think of the bigger picture in defeating Wei. But nope, time after time again, he just couldn't swallow his pride. Shout out to Lu Su though for making Wu much more bearable for me. I knew things would go south as soon as he died, and yep, they certainly did. The elements played a crucial role in this series, and none more so than fire. It was fire that devastated Cao Cao's 800,000 strong at the famous Red Cliffs, which forced him into retreat. That should have cost him his life. It only didn't because of Guan Yu's mercy towards him. Fire also quelled Liu Bei's revenge mission against Wu when his army was soundly defeated at Yiling. Ugh, this is it again, Liu Bei being stubborn. You just couldn't listen to your advisors on this one. Guan Yu and his arrogance left Jing open to attack, which was an issue in itself, and did ultimately lead to Shu's downfall. His drunken brother Zhang Fei beat his troops so much that they murdered him in his sleep. Yes, I know what some of you were saying, it was Lu Meng that dealt one of those fatal blows, at least to Guan Yu anyway, but Wu really wasn't the main fault at heart. And how could I forget about water playing its part when the element aided Sima Yi after Zhuge Liang managed to finally outmaneuver him? I've yet to mention that critical name yet, because I'm sure many of you knew before this series began it was the Sima clan that in the end reigned supreme. Him and the Jin dynasty of course go on to conquer and control the land, but Sima Yi as a character doesn't play a role until much later in the series. For the choice of casting, absolutely spot on. Sima Yi looks sinister and evil as hell, and he even has a laugh to rival that of Cao Cao's. It's kind of like an old version of his, like, it's best I can do there, sorry. Bloody hell. You never know what is going on in this patient schemer's head. Cao Cao warned his son before leaving this world to always stay on guard against him. But as fathers and sons continued to leave this world and Sima Yi remaining a constant, that guard was continually being lowered. Sima Yi, in fairness, did actually garner some form of sympathy. He was practically the only man alive that could rival Zhuge Liang's genius, and he was the best defence strategist in the land. His tactics just never sat well with those at court who continually had him rebuked and replaced. In that aspect, I suppose Sima Yi was completely justified in what he did. He was Zhuge Liang's arch nemesis. He had unwavering composure even in the face of supreme humiliation. That dress bit was a good one in truth, and had all the commanders storming off ready to fall into the trap. But the one person who could see through it and wouldn't bite was, of course, Sima Yi. I suppose in a sense this story was told with Shu Han being heralded as the good guys. Whether that's the way you feel or not, as history tells us, they were not successful in uniting the land. Once Liu Bei died after Yi Ling, he passed that task over to the only other man capable of achieving it. And once Zhuge Liang died at Wujiang Plains, that small bit of hope left in the world would eventually fade, and the Sima clan would take advantage of the Cao Dynasty and win control of the Three Kingdoms.
吕蒙，回去告诉大都督，让他好生用兵。
My overall verdict for Three Kingdoms is an 8 out of 10. I am extremely glad I decided to jump into this series, having a minor insight into the story beforehand. Learning more about this time period and characters was enjoyable as well as being a learning experience. I wanted to find out so much more about all these events that occurred. I know this too will be slightly over-dramatised and romanced, but all in all, for anyone with even a slight interest in this part of China's history, I would definitely recommend this show. Once again, the battles are pretty terrible. Very Chinesey is the only way I can think of explaining it. It's very much within their style of being heightened, over-the-top combat and all, but along with that, scenes were being reused more often than not. Makes this aspect the weakest in the show. You got a feel for that same soldier though, getting shot in the face with the same arrow time after time again. Also, the rapid aging was a little comical, but you can't really fault that here as it was necessary for the time jumps. Now, the music score is a bit of a mixed bag. Those that we have are excellent and very fulfilling with what they are used for, just there was only about 5 to 10 in total. You will hear the same score various times in the same episode in nearly every episode. Now, like I say, they are excellent in conveying the feeling or emotion that each scene brings, but they just needed to be more variation here. Budget strikes again, I assume. Strongest aspect, the storytelling, and the first quarter of the series focuses on each of the warlords rising into power, while simultaneously trying to remove the tyrant Dong Zhuo. The Minister Wang Yun, Dao Chan and Liu Bu's storyline was actually really interesting, though I can understand if some people found it to be a tad slow. Not me though, most people hear of Liu Bu and think of him as someone that lives only to fight. Far from that in reality, as it was love that caused Liu Bu to turn against his adoptive father. Yes, he was a warrior without equal. Among men, Liu Bu, among horses, red hair. And he fought all three of the Peach Garden brothers at the same time and still held his own. He would have lasted a lot longer too if he had a smarter head on him and actually listened to his advisors, mainly Chen Gong. Now, what were my favourite scenes from the show? Quite a few to choose from, and truthfully I can't separate a couple of them, both involving my favourite character. I just loved the first time that Zhuge Liang and Liu Bei met. One of the main lords of the land humbling himself like that was a touching moment, and it was there and then that Zhuge Liang had finally come to find his true master. Now, the other scene that hit me especially hard was towards the end. I nearly shed a tear as Zhuge Liang was departing from Liu Shan, and I knew the outcome in the end. I knew that they wouldn't see each other again, and knowing that made this scene even more saddening. It was Zhuge Liang's final goodbye to his adopted son and his final look at the capital, and I think deep down he somehow knew that too. I'm not kidding yet, even now speaking of it, it's giving me shivers. I'm not kidding. It was such an impactful scene. Damn, that one really hit me hard. Now, can't forget the Cao Cao and Wan Xiao bit though. That scene was bloody hilarious. Again, his laugh is just absolutely perfect, and him mocking Wan Xiao wasting his time is pinnacle Cao Cao. Other than that, Zhuge Liang at his altar was cool with the full change to the black attire, and Chen Gong's defiant final moments was also right up there. Now, if I had to choose 3 characters who were my favourites, of course, it's Zhuge Liang, it would then be Cao Cao, and... probably Zhun Yu, actually, who kind of acted like Cao Cao's right-hand minister. He was a very intriguing character. Zhao Yun is also right up there. Can't forget to mention Zilong. How about your most disliked characters though, and why? I have a couple in mind, and I've mentioned one already. That prick Zhou Yu, I could not stand him, and I was in hysterics when he constantly got one-upped and outthought by Zhuge Liang. Wan Shu's right up there too, because of course that conniving backstabber is in there, and I was so glad when he too was finally offed. Now, some sections were cut and omitted from the story entirely. Hefei was missing and was only referenced, as was the Yellow Turban Rebellion, but the series began after that bit. Dian Wei's sacrifice I think got one line of mentioning, and Tai Shi and Gan Ning were criminally underused or barely even in it. Then there was, at least to me, the unforgivable act of only having Xiahou Dun appear in one goddamn episode. Just one, which was basically Guan Yu's escape, and he is never to be seen from again. Such an injustice to my favourite game character. That is one character I would have definitely gave more screen time to, especially where he was shot in the eye at Zhai Pi. Top performers wise is easy. Cao Cao is the number 1. Sima Yi's actor Da Hongni was also incredible. Yi Lu playing Zhuge Liang was my personal favourite, and in truth I thought the actor that played Emperor Zhang was quite good actually, even if he was crying most of the time towards the last part of his tenure. Poor guy, I shouldn't be laughing really. Felt sorry for him most of the time watching it, to be honest. It's hard to mention every moment that happened in the show, so forgive me if I missed out on some important bits. As I mentioned, I knew the rough outline of the story before going into the show without the intricacies, but after coming out, I feel fulfilled and justified for sinking a lot of time into it. Three Kingdoms is not about the action, hell, that is a second or tertiary element. First and foremost, it's about the story, and in that line of thinking, this series from 2010 nails it with that. I've never done a full series review before, so I hope you all enjoyed this one. A special thanks to Jian Hu, who annotated and subtitled the version of the series that I watched. 95 episodes in total, and would I do it again? You're damn right I would. This is the best version of the Three Kingdoms story that has been brought to our TV screens, and anyone with even a passing interest, go get watching. So what do you all think of the Three Kingdoms TV show, and who is your favourite character and why? And also, what was your favourite story arc from this turbulent era in Chinese history? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the review. And I'll see you on the next one. Ha 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 ha!